for it, find it, make it your own. It's the Get Thrifty Podcast.
Hey Thrifties, welcome back to the Get Thrifty podcast brought to you by ARC Thrift Stores. ARC Thrift Stores is a nonprofit thrift store chain, and I am your host, Maggie Civic, and we are all about sharing everything that has to do with shopping secondhand. So if you're part of our unique thrift culture, please contact us. We would love to promote your business, your social channels, and share your stories and advice with our listeners. As always, you can find ARC on Instagram and YouTube at ARC Thrift. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited. This is going to be a little departure for us. We have an artist, entrepreneur. We're very excited. Please welcome Kate to the show. Kate Wallace is a creative leader and sustainability advocate with over 2 decades of experience within the global fashion industry. She has led creative design and brand strategies across Europe, Asia, and the US. Kate merges creative vision with purpose-driven innovation. Her work explores fashion's cultural influence, its responsibility to foster systemic change for the benefit of business, people, and the planet. In addition to her industry leadership, Kate shares her expertise as a lecturer and critic at leading fashion schools, inspiring the next generation of designers to create with integrity and impact. She is currently advancing her research through Redesigning Fashion, a project reimagining design practices to align creativity, sustainability, and societal value. Thrifting has been a big part of her life for a very long time. Her mother established several what are called charity shops in the UK as she was growing up. Most of her clothes come from there, and the workings of the store and the volunteers were a big part of her growing up. Kate, we're so excited. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Maggie. I'm excited to be here.
We're very jazzed. First of all, we love an accent on this show. I'm just going to be honest about that. Usually we get that fun Midwestern accent and the Canadian. So excited to have your English accent. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let's start with your social channels so people can kind of follow along as they listen today. How do we find you on all the places?
So on Instagram, you can find me at Kate R. Wallace. And on Substack, you can find me also at Kate R. Wallace.
Ooh, Substack. Okay. So I assume you're doing much bigger dissertations on Substack regarding this whole topic, but let's kind of back up and get to your origin story. How did you find this place? How did we find you? What happened?
So this place being right here, right now, I was a designer in the fashion industry for 20 years. So I studied in the UK. And from there, I was working, I specialized as a knitwear designer. So I'm a very tactile designer, working with my hands, knitting, making things, really thinking about the construction of things, how things lie on the body, working directly with textiles on the body. And then I worked in London for a while, working with some very small, kind of very creative, hands-on brands. And then I had this incredible opportunity and I moved to Hong Kong. And I lived there for 3 years, and I was working in what's called like a development office, and the main design office was in Germany. And I would work in Hong Kong, going directly into the factories, developing new ideas, learning so much because I was meeting the people who were actually making our clothes and working with them to discuss designs, different ideas. How can we do this? Why can't I do that? So that I really got to understand the real nitty gritty of it all. And then I would send packages of inspiration back to the office in Germany. So it was this real back and forth. It was very creative. I learned so much. It was the most wonderful opportunity. Also, living in Hong Kong was really, really fun.
Oh my gosh.
From there, I then went to live in Singapore for 2 years, where I was working for another international brand.
Love this.
Which again was another really great learning experience. It was really global, flying backwards and forwards to different places, designing sweaters and cut and sew knits, so jersey, t-shirts, etc. And then I made the move to New York, and I've been here for, I think it's about 13, 14 years now.
Wow.
And worked at various brands in New York. And I kind of grew from sweater design into leading women's design teams, doing a bit of menswear as well. Concepting ideas, designing, really how I very passionately believe that fashion and clothes are how we tell stories, how we communicate with one another. So really a big part of creating clothes for a brand was creating the stories, how we communicated. So that was something that I really loved doing. And then as I was doing all this work, it was dawning on me that, and I was learning about sustainability and learning about the impact of fashion on the world and the amount of stuff that we're making, where it goes, what happens when we're not using it anymore, the amount of waste along the way that people were affected during the production process, the people who are making our clothes. And I underwent further study. I took a master's program in sustainability to learn more so that I could really work with the people that I was working with in a business sense and understand how sustainability and business could integrate together.
Mhm.
I then had a baby 2 years
Kids
ago.
always happen. Yes. Everyone has their COVID or their baby story, one or the other, or both.
And they kind of dovetailed one another.
Sure.
So COVID really gave me a lot of time to be in a different space as well, because we weren't directly in the spaces to think about this differently. But when my daughter arrived, I was exposed to a whole different way of interacting with clothes, and also a really different, more of an impetus to make change for her and for the world that we live in. And so then that's when my really creative research on the back of my postgraduate study really started to develop. And I started developing ideas around research, but also creative making, because I'm a designer and I make with my hands. And I realized things made a lot more sense for me when I could make them visual. And I think that's a really lovely way and powerful way to communicate as well when we're talking about ideas that can be maybe theoretical or feel a little distant. But when we connect into people and actually the visual way that we communicate, we can reach more people. So that's how I'm here.
It's so fascinating. And you're really undergoing a project that I think is going to be inspirational. You know, a lot of times on this podcast, we get stuck in the like, how are you a good reseller? What's the best strategy for thrift? But this is kind of a departure to talk about the stories that are behind this. So you have your daughter, you start deciding that you're going to, you know, share these stories. And I'm like having a moment here thinking about my son's clothes and how difficult it is for me to give them up sometimes, especially like the jerseys from whatever sport he's been in or what.
Yeah.
I keep it all. So
Right.
tell us what you're learning. What's the project going to look like?
So this project is all based upon the idea that we live through our clothes and understanding our relationship with our clothes, because clothes are more than clothes. Once we inhabit them, once we put them together, once we make decisions about them, it's very personal. We're putting things on our body, we inhabit them, they become animated, they become conversation. And so this research product really, it started with my daughter. When she was born, I had two very close friends who saved a lot of stuff for me. And they passed me these bags of clothes. Wonderful, taking her from newborn up to 4 or 5, probably. So I've got stuff that I have squirreled away for as she gets bigger and bigger. But the fact that they had saved these clothes for me, and then when they passed them, it was such an act of love and care. And the amount of joy that I feel when I dress her in these clothes, and I know that this came from this child and this came from this child, and sometimes I put them together and I'm like, here they are together. And I started to understand my interaction with fashion and clothing in a different way. So this project is really about the idea of tracing clothes and tracing the connections that they form between people and understanding what's of value and also what can be difficult about that. What happens when we hold on to a lot of things? Like you were saying, it takes up a lot of space. It takes a lot of space in our minds sometimes. What's that relationship? And if we can understand that relationship, maybe we can think about how we design clothes a little differently. So that's the opening premise of this project.
Oh my gosh. I mean, has there been like a wow story yet?
Well, it's largely been about me. I've
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this will be like a personal memoir on some.
It is. So it started as a personal memoir and it's spreading outward. So what I'm finding is that there's layers of history and story, and there's layers of memory and trace. And it depends on how something is passed to you. If it comes in a big bag, maybe it's less meaningful. What if something's passed to you as a singular thing? Why things are passed on. There's some really lovely stories there. Sometimes it maybe has a terrible association and somebody wants to get it away from them. Or maybe it's a thing that their child they smiled for the first time in a photograph. And so that's a very meaningful piece and they want it to go to another child where they have a close relationship. What I'm finding really interesting as well is that when those things are passed on, they're becoming more and more worn. Some people have different reactions to that. Some people, I'm finding that I actually quite enjoy that something comes to me and maybe that there's a hole in it. There's a one particular cardigan right now. My daughter enjoys sticking her finger through this hole. She calls it buttonhole. It's not. I have plans to mend it, but I want to mend it in such a careful and significant way because I then want it to go on to the next person. And it's
Mhm.
kind of like me and her putting our imprint on this piece of clothing. So like the wear and tear is really important as well. So I'm documenting and understanding all those different things through the journeys too.
It really is fascinating. I'm having another moment here. All of our clothes go to my next door neighbor, Teresa. Shout out Teresa Martin. Her son Henry wears these clothes, and I see him on his little bike riding around in my son's,
Mm,
hand-me-downs, and
mhm,
it does bring me joy. And even
mm.
my husband will go, "Oh, I saw that sweatshirt. I used to love when my son's Reed, wore that
Yeah.
sweatshirt, and I just saw Henry in it." It is kind of cool. And how do you think it's gonna this kind of information? Will it be that people will demand their clothes be made different if they have a better appreciation?
Well, I think there's multiple factors. I think
Mhm.
when we think about how clothes are made and the pressures and the incentives of working within a business and why, if we can bring other values and priorities into that, maybe we can make those decisions differently. So
Wow.
thinking about how we wear clothes, and we talk a lot about how we're talking about, yes, my son wore it or whoever wore it 3 times ago. But what about what happens next? We don't often think about who wears it next and like
Mhm.
passing it forward. So when we're designing, how can we be thinking about the idea of it's like designing for custodianship, designing for the future? Who's going to have it next? There's this really lovely thing happening in children's clothes right now where you have a label. You know, it used to say this belongs to, and there was one line.
Yeah.
Now it has like 5 lines. This
Mm.
belongs to, so that you can add your names. I'm thinking about ideas about all the people that have touched this garment. They put their layer on there. They're putting their memories into it. They're putting their name on there. But also the people who made it. What if we're recognizing those people in this chain? So
Yeah.
we're really understanding the value of this piece of clothing. Because it can be very easy to discard and throw away. But if we're really thinking, no, this piece has value. It meant this to this person, it meant this to this person. Maybe it doesn't mean anything to me, but maybe we treat it differently
Yeah.
if we put that in there. So
Maybe like a
thinking
library book, in fact. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it has this really, really long a list attached to
So
it.
cool.
That's kind of the ideas that I'm exploring and that are coming up for me as I'm doing this research.
It's fascinating. I mean, and you live in this world of, academia, when you probably are inspired. And I do want to understand when you're speaking at, fashion schools and you're sharing this kind of information,
Yeah.
what's the vibe with the younger gen? How do they, accept this learning from you?
The younger generation are really very aware of the impact of fashion upon the environment, super aware, and they have incredible ideas. They are very passionate about doing things differently.
Mm.
The part and the information that I think is important that I can impart and have them understand is how it currently operates. We're entrenched into certain ways of doing things. What happens if we smash that up? What happens if we look at it completely differently? How can we change these systems? And
Mm.
that's why we need fresh perspectives and new people coming into the industry who think about doing things differently. Why do we do it that way? How can we do it differently? What's important when we're designing something? Like adding in these extra layers of really thinking that the question I ask a lot is why? Why are you doing this? Why is this important? Why does anyone want this?
Yeah. How do thrift stores fit into all of this?
Well, in my career, it's been quite interesting because thrift stores are a big source of inspiration as a designer.
Mhm.
We would constantly source shopping thrift, more and more online, I have to say. But we
Interesting.
would, yeah, more and more online. I think because of access, the ease of finding things, the ease of search. There's been a big difference in the way that through my life, thrift has existed.
Hmm.
Like to go back to my childhood and my mother setting up those charity stores, I spent a lot of time in them. It was a very democratic place. Everybody came in there.
Interesting.
And I was often, I would spend my Saturday afternoon sitting in the back amongst all of the bags with people sorting around me. And I would quite often take things home to make things with things that had been discarded. But there was like a range, of hierarchy of goods, if you will. And then as going into the industry and using thrift as inspiration, it became less about charity stores, more about vintage stores, which is
Mhm.
kind of a different reframing of it, really.
Oh yeah, it's all a PR move, right?
Absolutely. It's just a different branding. So then that, and then obviously eBay is a treasure trove. And really finding, I kind of had this, I like finding things at the root, feeling like they haven't gone through all those different marketing moves, if you will, like finding them in a charity store where they have been given by somebody. So that's been a very important part of discovery. But what I'm really enjoying with this project and understanding how things move between people is personal passing on. It's like when something goes from person to person, and it's really revealed to me this huge like communities of people who are passing goods between them and what that means. And sometimes it's overseas. I know people. My mother is arriving tomorrow from England with a parcel of things from my sister-in-law.
To hand me down, yes.
Exactly. Which she has held on to. Her children are now 17 and 15, something like that. And so she's held on to them that long. Now she's passing them to my daughter because there is that connection there. And she's somebody who holds on to things because there's a lot of attachment and love, but she feels she wants to give them to my daughter because she has that attachment to her.
Yeah, it really is a cool story. What are your personal thoughts on fast fashion? Is all of this going to end? This, rapid, quick, low quality disruption gonna stop?
Not unless we can think about clothes differently. I think we have to understand the value of what we're doing and why we're doing it. There's the conversation of access. We need varied price points so that people can access clothes. It's another very important thing with thrift stores. And sometimes what's happening with thrift stores being picked over and like the really good stuff being taken away and sold for a lot more money elsewhere is changing access for different kind of people. I think that's another interesting thing that needs to be examined more. I don't think fast fashion is going to go anywhere until we really think about why we're doing what we're doing and put that into the value chain of creation.
It's really fascinating, and it gives me hope that people are making a change, but there's just so much of it going in. As a leader and an expert in high fashion too, what do you think's happening to the runways? We're definitely hearing that word vintage so much more. What are your thoughts?
I mean, there's a very interesting thing happening where the secondhand market is growing faster than the first-hand market. So how do those two markets start to exist together? How are brands thinking about their items, particularly luxury items, going on to resale? Because we're going to have to start building those business models together. How can they exist together? How are brands thinking about designing new things whilst also selling something maybe again? Because that's the reality of where we're going. Vintage has always been a huge source of information and inspiration for luxury, like I say, for all the way through fashion, because it's a rich source of detailing. It's a rich source of fabric information. I have a belief that clothes are a cultural record of the time at which they were created. And that comes down to fast fashion too, because through it, we understand the kind of fabrics that are being used, where it was made, who made it, how it was made. And so when in luxury fashion, then we're looking at vintage, those are the sources that we're pulling on and then reinterpreting in different ways as well, because there's just so much information. It's a wealth of information.
And I do love it that it's becoming part of the normal, like everyday cultural influence.
It really is.
I'm stunned. This whole discussion around The Devil Wears Prada 2, the sequel, and how when they made this first movie, they really had trouble. People in fashion thought that it was kind of a snub, and now it's been totally embraced, and they're going to have access to all of this really vintage fashion for this movie. Excites me on a whole new level because, maybe it's going to turn yet another generation on to thrifting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and the younger generation are certainly looking at thrifting. That when you examine why people are using secondhand clothing, it's an access, it's a price point. There's the joy of the discovery, the joy of finding the thing, and it's so available now in so many different ways. So I think it will continue to grow because there are so many benefits to it. And so what's interesting is, like you're saying, how the two are going to coexist, how are they going to live together? I'm
really
also really interested with the idea of trends, because fashion is about trends. Fashion is about the next thing that happens. Like I say, they're like a cultural record. So they're of that moment. What happens when they keep coming back again? Is it
Yeah.
just like more levels of micro trends, like layering up on one another? Is it getting faster? Is it getting slower? These are all really interesting things to be looked at as well.
We're really finding a lot of interesting upcyclers out there too, that are taking some of these older fashions. And you mentioned mending. Mending was a dead art in some ways, and it's coming back. We're finding more of those kind of mending influencers out there, taught themselves to sew.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the mending industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think the mending and tailoring are two things that we didn't really think about, because we moved through our clothes quickly and you moved on to the next thing. But what I'm finding through this research is that they obviously extend lives, but they're also a way of like adding another layer of yourself into a garment as you mend it, as you care for it, as you tailor it. And I really think with the growth of the secondhand market, those things are going to, mending and tailoring are going to have to go hand in hand with it. Because one of the biggest problems you find with using secondhand clothing is fit. Because you can't have, there aren't 4 of them there for you to try on in different sizes. It's that sometimes you just have to have it because you love the color, you love the pattern, but there's no way it fits. Or there's something there's slightly something wrong with the lapel shape. And that's because you know that right now it doesn't actually fit with what's happening in fashion. I mean, you don't know that out loud, but you know in your heart that it feels a bit wrong. But if there was somebody right there on site who could help you tailor it and put it to fit and work on your body, because we have to feel good in our clothes. They're like, they work with our bodies. That's when it becomes the conversation that we're having. So I think those things are integral. There's also something very interesting about mending, where we used to hide our mending, like hiding it, like mending was a sign of wear and tear. It was maybe a shameful thing, but now we're talking about visible mending as well, and like making it part of a beautiful creation. It's another layer. It's something we want to show and celebrate.
Yeah. And this, idea of something being one of one. It's like you're making your own item and putting your stamp on it. And there's nothing else like it that exists, that I think young people are proud to say, I upcycled it. I made it,
Yes, absolutely. You can author it yourself. And again, it's this idea of value, like you're putting yourself into your clothing.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's magical, and I love that you're putting it into words for people, and giving a space for people to do this and sharing it out loud. I'm really fascinated by all of this. Let's go back to the UK and your favorite op shops. Any fun charity shops you want to shout out from back in the day?
Back in the day, it was really all about Oxfam. Oxfam was there everywhere. Every weekend when I was a student in Liverpool, we'd go down to Oxfam and buy something to go out in that night.
Wow.
And it was quite often lingerie, like negligees, etc. This kind of thing. But then we dress up with other pieces that we already owned. But yeah, every weekend we go down to Oxfam. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And and I love this mixing of patterns that has become totally allowed. You can wear a leather top that you found at one thrift shop, and then, something lace on the bottom is becoming, it's just, I'm loving that the fashion it looks thrifted, and it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's about how you put it together, because you can put it together in a way it looks thrifted, or you can put it in a way that doesn't. Again, it's really about your authorship and your ownership of it and your own discovery with what you're finding.
So if you had a crystal ball, what would you say the landscape looks like 10 years from now in fashion? What's your gut say?
I'm going to answer that through a utopian crystal ball, where I'd like it to be.
Yes.
I would like there to be new models of, and the people going into the industry, they want change. They're going to make change. An industry where we have reimagined systems to give equal value and prioritize the people and places, the resources that we are taking our materials from, the people who are making our clothes, the people who are affected as we discard our clothes, so that they are held in mind. They're important. They, when we make decisions, we're thinking about how we affect them. Again, it's the why. Why are we doing this, and who are we touching? Because that's the other incredible thing about fashion. When I'm talking about networks of communication, networks of community, fashion is a global industry. And we touch so many people when we make one decision about which button we want to use, or what color we want to make something, or how we make something, or how complicated we make something. there's so many people over the globe that we're touching that we don't even see. I would like to have an industry where those people are visible to one another and we are working together to a common goal. So it's not all dictated by one side, one party.
I love that. It's so interesting to me though, that you are in this like fashion business and this is kind of, how you're feeling about the future and what you hope it looks like. Do you think others in your industry from fashion are kind of moving in the same direction? Because you guys are the leaders. You're going to determine what happens next.
I think there are many amazing change makers. There are many obstacles to change. There are many things that make it very difficult. Largely, it's to do with the priorities of the industry, the priorities of business. But the more we can talk with one another, the more that we can share ideas, the more that we can get into schools, talk to people who are coming into the industry, and think about different ways of doing things and why we're doing it. I have hope for the future. There are so many wonderful forums going on right now. Like there's Eileen Fisher is hosting a really wonderful free access this week. It's still going on, a series of talks with different industry leaders about change that's happening in the industry. FIT hosted a wonderful sustainability summit, I think it was last week, that and often they are available online, so you can be tuning in from wherever you are, because there are lots of really interesting conversations going on. In all of it, we're talking about sourcing, talking about how we dye things, how we make things, microplastics,
Chemicals,
conversation, chemicals, global shipping patterns, but also down to how we design, why we make things, consumer behavior. There's so many different interesting conversations to get involved with.
Yeah.
I think the more we get engaged and can engage with each other and have conversations, the more change will happen.
And thrift stores will never die. That's kind of my hope,
Thrift stores will never die because they're a part of the integrated system of stuff. And they're an important part of this system. And I think a lot of, we can think about why they're important. We can talk about like, what's their value? What's their unique value point? Because there is unique value to a thrift store. A big part, like I was saying, in my childhood was growing up in the community of this thrift store.
Oh, yeah.
The volunteers that would come in, they became a part of our lives. It was like Granny Cynthia, Auntie, blah, blah. Like they were all people that we knew and we interacted with, and they cared for us as children. And then as I'm going through this work right now and seeing these communities, I think that this is really grounded in this idea of coming together around things.
Yeah. It's exciting. It really is exciting. Someday we are going to write a book about the ghosts at our stores. I just am a believer. And the ladies now, I'm like really inspired. I'll have to have one of them on because they do believe that there's something left in these items that stays from the person, is imprinted on the item.
Yes. I found that in my research. People have been saying that they believe, for example, like a wedding dress with a wedding that ended in divorce, like would not want the dress because it carries that with them. And I think these are all ideas and stories that we can explore. And again, it's just different ideas of value and why things are important.
So fun. What about thrifting a gift? That there's this widespread discussion about it. Do you do it?
Yes.
Okay.
I totally, yes. I think it's fine. I think it's important that if it's not something that's working for you in your life, yes, of course, give it to somebody for whom it will work. Absolutely.
Pass it along. Yep. Now in New York, are you like downtown? Are you where favorite shops? Any place you need to shout out that's like your favorite secondhand store in New York?
There are so many I'm in Brooklyn. There are some very beautiful elevated vintage stores in like the Lower East Side, Pilgrim. I'm not going to remember any of the other ones right now. But then you also have these really just like great fun places like L Train Vintage that have 100 plaid shirts and like 100 pairs of jeans, and they're well curated. They're easy to shop. So that like again, there's like this wealth of tiers, hierarchy, if you will, of thrift stores. Yeah.
Okay, lots of options then. Downtown Brooklyn, guys, check it out.
I also still really I like online because again,
there's a whole debate over that. Yeah.
The search option is good. Obviously, you can't touch it, you can't feel it, which is something that is very important with clothes. But I really appreciate the way that you can search online and really dig
And
around.
find your thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that swear by it. That's how they source their entire, stock for reselling online.
Right.
It's just, there's a great debate, and most people ask me, when will we go to that model and try and sell it? We haven't done it
Mhm.
yet because we still are trying to, curate an experience where it's a community. Grab a local coffee, bring a friend. We want you to
Right.
spend 2-3 hours in 30,000 square feet of,
Yeah.
donated items that are a reflection of the community. But, I always say never, because you never know. We may someday.
Yeah. Just like an extension of. I
Yeah.
think it's really worth looking into.
Necessity. Yeah, it might
Yeah.
be someday.
Mhm.
And who knows what happens to the world. If we shut down again ever, it would be something we'd have to explore.
Yeah.
Can you share with us like a unicorn item? Do you have something that's like that item that you're super proud of that you found secondhand?
The thing that I normally I don't really go in with a mission necessarily. I'm very attracted to, often it's things like technique. But there is this one, yes, I know. There's this bag. I got it in Canada. It was in like a flea market, and it was beautiful. It has a wooden handle. I always am drawn to bags. It was a
Mhm.
wooden handle, and it was made up of these kind of like interlocking leaves of leather that have been cut into different shapes, and they're studded together, and it's
Mm,
black and white, and it's absolutely stunning. And nobody else has a bag like that.
one of one. The beauty of one of
Exactly.
one.
Yeah,
Yes.
I always am drawn to bags. It's the construction and the way that they last, the way that they bags are very dear to me.
The statement piece. Love it.
Yeah, yeah.
What about something you'd like to manifest? What would you like to put out in the universe next time you're out and about secondhand shopping with a friend or with your daughter? What are you looking to
Mhm.
find?
Well, what I found, I tell you what I did find that I really did want to manifest, and there it was. And I'd forgotten about it until it turned up, was a herringbone mohair
Ooh,
coat, full length, beautiful,
quality.
big shoulder pads. It was
Mhm,
incredible. I was walking down the street, and it was outside on the kind of like, we're going to get rid of this rack.
mhm.
And there it was, just winking at me. And I'd
Mm.
had this herringbone coat in my head for so long, and there it was,
Ugh,
just waiting. So now it's
the
mine.
thrift gods provide. I do
They
believe
really
that.
did.
It's
Yes, it was just
amazing.
in the back of my head. Yeah.
So what's next for you? Any big 2026 goals? If we start following your page, what are we going to see?
Yeah. So this project that I'm working on right now is ongoing,
Mm.
researching the use of clothing being passed between parties, specifically children's clothing. This research is going to manifest as a book. It's going to be a
Ugh,
visual creation so that
amazing.
it's something that we want to engage with, to really, and I'm looking to visually represent how things are passed between one another and why they're special. So the items that are featured are going to be documented, photographed, wear and tear, mending, stories, all of these things as they travel around the globe. And then the next part of that is that the book will be connected to a website. The pieces that are featured are going to have a QR code sewn inside them, so that when they go on to the next person can scan in the code if they choose to take part, and they can go onto the site and they can log their information and who's wearing the clothes and anything special about it, why they love it, maybe why they don't. And then when they pass it on, the next person can do the same thing, so that we can trace forward as well, so that we can see where things are going. And then maybe we'll find out where it demised, how it fell apart, or maybe they'll just drop off the face of the planet
Mm.
in terms of the tracing. But that's the idea, so that these pieces, we can have a complete story looking backwards and looking forwards, so that we can really bring in an awareness of where our stuff goes.
Oh, I do hope one of these items ends up in one of our stores. I
Wouldn't
can't
that be
wait for that to
wonderful?
happen. That would be just the coolest. I can't wait for our listeners to like give
Maybe I
us
could
some
send you one
feedback.
to plant, and
Yes.
then it can go forward.
I mean, it's just such a great idea. And there's so much PR around this that could really take it to the next level. I'm excited to see what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very cool project. And I love that there's something like this. I mean, the story of our clothes, it's
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The story of our clothes and what they mean to us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I always say that this podcast is devoted to, normalizing shopping secondhand, You're obviously doing that on a whole other level by telling these stories. So thank you for your service to our industry. Please keep going.
Thank you. I will.
That's the goal, right? I mean, it does, people like you to give me hope that, because you kind of worry, in our industry, like what's going to happen? Is there going to be a turn from it? Right now, we're in this hot and heavy moment. Is it fleeting? Is it going to go away? And I have some fears over that. So I'm hoping that people like you will make sure it doesn't.
No, I don't think it will go away. I think it's going to become more important and more integrated.
Amazing. Such an inspiration. Love your content. Please keep it up and keep us posted on the journey. And when you launch the book, please let us know. We'd love to share it on our socials and get it out for you.
I certainly will. Yes. And if anyone wants to take part.
Oh, yes. How do they do that? Because I know someone listening is going to be like, I have a story for you.
Yes. If somebody would like to take part and talk about a specific item of clothing, and we'd interview and we'd share photographs, they could reach out to me on my Instagram DM. Yeah. That would be
perfect.
Great.
And it's Kate Wallace.
Kate R. Wallace.
Kate
An
R.
R in the middle. Yeah.
Perfect. Love it, guys. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all the things, and reach out. Join this. This is a movement. And I'm just happy that you gave us your time today. As we end every pod, though, I love to give a shout out to my personal inspiration, Dolly Parton. So much talk about our queen lately. She's had a rough year, but she's on the mend and going to take the world by storm again really soon here. My understanding is she'll be at the Sphere in Las Vegas this year. So we're excited for that. Can't wait to see what vintage she wears because it's probably something fabulous. Kate, thoughts, feelings on Dolly Parton?
I adore Dolly Parton. She's such an inspiration. I think she's such a good human being. I have a very, as a family, we have a connection to a very dear person in Texas, and Dolly Parton did the halftime show at Thanksgiving in Texas.
Yes, a few years ago with cowboy cheerleaders.
I always connect Dolly to this person. I know she's not from Texas, but I connected to this person, which makes her even more dear to me. So yeah, Dolly is very dear.
Oh, I love it. A connection
really
to a friend.
Go to Hollywood.
You really are doing the perfect project that you could make that connection to. That's perfect. That brings me joy. Thank you for playing along with that, Kate. You're an absolute delight. Tell our listeners once again how they find you and send you all of their love and follow this journey because it's going to be exciting.
Yes, you can follow on my Instagram, Kate R. Wallace. You can also follow on my Substack, which is also Kate R. Wallace, where I really, I talk it's kind of like visual writing, if you will. There's a lot of imagery talking about the work that I'm doing, explaining my thoughts processes, but really connecting it to the visual manifestation of it. So there's visual essays, visual stories. Yeah.
And if someone reaches out to you on Substack or Instagram, you're open to those DMs.
Absolutely. Either. Yes.
Amazing. Thanks for joining us, Kate.
You're awesome. Maggie. Thank you. This has been fun.
And Thrifties, thanks so much for tuning in once again to the Get Thrifty podcast. Reminder, save our pod, leave us a 5-star review about how funny, creative, and smart we are. And if you're part of this unique thrift culture and you'd like to join us, you can find me on Instagram at Podcast with Maggie. And as always, please follow ARC on Instagram and YouTube at ARC Thrift, and now on TikTok at ARC Thrift Stores. Thanks so much and have a wonderful week.
Hunt for it, find it, make it your own. It's the Get Thrifty Podcast.